In fifth grade, our entire second unit is focused on fractions. An important skill fifth graders need to learn is how to find a common denominator when you are given two fractions. So a common denominator occurs when two or more fractions have the same denominator. So if we use 1/3, just for the sake of this example, our top number is called our numerator, our bottom number is called our denominator. So when we have a common denominator, it's just asking us to make the two denominators the same. So I have a picture here just to model for you why we need common denominators. If I was to take my 1/3 and add 1/4, this is what 1/3 looks like, and this is what 1/4 looks like. I cannot add or subtract fractions if they are not made of equal parts. So I can see that my thirds are a lot bigger than my fourths. These parts are not the same, so I can't add or subtract them because then we won't have a fraction. Fractions need to be made of equal parts. In order to make these two equal, to make equal parts, that's where finding a common denominator comes into place. One way we are going to do that is by finding the least common multiple. Before we focus on least, let's just talk about what a common multiple is. So a common multiple is a number that is a multiple of two or more numbers. Example, common multiples of 3 and 4 are 0, 12, and 24. In order to find our common multiples, we're going to skip count by the two denominators. So my first denominator is 3. I'm going to skip count by 3's. So if I start with 0, so up 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, and I will stop at 21. Then I'm going to move on to my 4, and I also want to skip count by 4's. So I'm going to start at 0, 4, 8, 12, 16, I will stop at 20. So when we find our least common multiple, now that I have listed out some of our multiples, I want to look for the smallest one they have in common aside from 0. So the smallest number or multiple that these two have in common is 12. So I want to make my common denominator 12. I want to make both 1/3 and 1/4 have a denominator of 12 since that is the least multiple that they have in common. When we do that, I want to make sure I set up my problem 1/3 plus 1/4, so I rewrote it, and I also want to make sure that it is vertical, up and down, and not side to side. So again, I have some visuals here for you. So I'm going to take my 1/3, and I know my common denominator is going to be 12. So I had to take 3 times what gives me 12? Well, I know 3 times 4 gives me 12. Whatever we do to the bottom or whatever we do to the denominator, we have to do to the numerator. So I'm going to fill in this blank with a 4. Since 3 times 4 is 12, 1 times 4 gives me 4. So now I have 4 twelfths. Move on to my next fraction. Again, we're making a common denominator of 12. I had to take 3 times 4. 4 times 3 is 12. Whatever we do to the denominator, we have to do to the numerator. 1 times 3 gives me 3. And again, if I look at my visuals, I now have two fractions that are made of the same size equal parts. I have 4 twelfths plus 3 twelfths. So one way you could solve it, you could count up your parts, and I can shade them in my final model. So I have 4, 5, 6, 7. So this would give me a final answer, 7 twelfths. We go back to our equation. Notice I'm not going to change my denominator because that is how many parts are in my whole. So I'm going to keep my 12 the same, and I'm going to take my two numerators and add them together. 4 plus 3 gives me 7 for a final answer of 7/12.